To order, je déclare cette.
I call this meeting to order.
Welcome to the 21st meeting of the House of Commons Special Committee on the COVID-19 pandemic.
A brief reminder to all members to avoid sound issues. People participating in person should not be connected to the video conference.
Video conference. I would like to remind you that when you're speaking, you should be on the same channel as the language that you're speaking. Comme l'habitude.
As usual, please address your remarks through the chair.
Direct your remarks through the chair. We will now proceed. Oh, I'm afraid I understand that we don't have any ministerial announcements today. We'll go on to presenting petitions, and I would like to remind members that any petition presented during a meeting of the special committee must have already been certified by the clerk of petitions.
For members participating in person, we ask that they please come up and drop the signed certificate off at the table once the petition is presented.
Will be presented by. No, we'll go to Mr. Genuous. Mr. Genuous will have our first petition.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to be presenting a petition in support of Bill S-204. It's a bill in the Senate that would make it a criminal offense for someone to receive an organ which has been taken by force from an unwilling patient. This is a practice that we know happens in certain places. For instance, inside of China, there's a well-established series of events that has led to forced organ harvesting and trafficking happening there with the consent of the government. And many people are concerned about this gross violation of human rights, and I hope that we'll be able to get support to quickly pass Bill S-204. Petitioners are calling on all members to support the swift passage of this bill to address this horrific practice. Thank you.
We'll now go to Mr. Davies. Mr. Davies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm honored to present petition E-2492, signed by over 3,000 Canadians who note that in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, hundreds of thousands of critically and chronically ill patients, including children, seniors, and veterans, are at risk of losing access to medical cannabis. The petitioners are calling on the federal government to recognize the provision of medical cannabis as an essential, constitutionally protected service so that all activities involved in preserving patient access qualify as essential services throughout the current pandemic and beyond.
Presenting petitions. Seeing none, we'll proceed now to statements by members. The first one will be the
first statement will be done by Ms. Brière. Ms. Brière. Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to thank the companies that signed up to the Sherbrooke Restart Forum that I organized in cooperation with the Sherbrooke Chamber of Commerce last Thursday. This forum was the opportunity to discuss solutions to allow businesses and entrepreneurs to fully resume operations. It was also an opportunity to hear from small business owners who were able to innovate throughout this crisis, such as Mohamed Laroussi of E2 Metrics, who found a smart, low-cost, and eco-friendly way to turn water into disinfectant. I'd also like to benefit from this opportunity to thank my colleague, the President of the Treasury Board, and Mr. Jean-Guy Côté from the Institute of Quebec, who accepted to speak at this highly successful event. Our government has given SMEs the leverage they need to get through this pandemic, and thanks to the ingenuity of local residents, I'm hopeful that we will see a buoyant recovery. Now we're going to continue.
Kelly.
Mr. Chair, on Tuesday, MPs from all parties at the Finance Committee unanimously passed a motion calling on the government to fully fund the Auditor General. Massive pre-COVID spending, a failing infrastructure program with 20,000 projects unaccounted for, new Crown corporations with giant budgets, and unprecedented COVID support programs have vastly increased the Auditor General's workload. Yesterday, the Minister of Heritage said that if the Auditor General needed more money, all she had to do was ask. Well, Mr. Speaker, she's already asked. The Auditor General has repeatedly asked for an additional $11 million. They've been asking for this money since 2018, and the government keeps saying no. Now, the Auditor General has stopped working on performance audits and for 2 years in a row have testified at the Public Accounts Committee that they don't have enough money to do their job. This government is hiding from Parliament and it's hiding from the Auditor General while hundreds of billions of dollars are being rushed out the door.
We'll now go to Mr. Van Bynen. Mr. Van Bynen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Newmarket Aurora has been the proud home of the York Region Pride Parade for the past 4 years. And while we won't be waving flags, spreading love, and embracing inclusion and diversity as we walk along Main Street this year, we'll be celebrating Pride Month from home. I want to thank York Pride for making Digital Pride happen this year to celebrate safely and virtually as we continue to face this pandemic. After all, Pride is much more than a parade. It's about providing a safe place for diversity and individuality, encouraging acceptance and inclusivity, and recognizing the contributions of the LGBTQ plus people in our community. Mr. Chair, these are values that we must uphold beyond Pride Month. I want to wish a happy Pride Month to the LGBTQ plus communities in Newmarket Aurora, across York Region, and all of Canada. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We are now going to go to Ms. LaRouche. Ms. LaRouche. Thank you very much, Chair. A family from Shefford has had an extraordinary experience. The Casavant-Marois family decided to help out sick children. After their second child was born premature at 30 weeks old, almost 13 years ago, this family wanted to help out others and thank those who helped their son Jeremy. They decided to embark on a wonderful adventure to celebrate life and every waking moment. They planned a bike trip with their 4 children to cross Canada up to the western coast and then go to Cuba. This big adventure allowed the family to make many memories, meet new friends, discover new places, languages, and with an open mind allowing them to discover hidden strengths. But COVID-19 struck before they could return home. They partnered with Opération Enfant Soleil to raise donations, and I was supposed to greet them when they arrived, but I was unable to. But I'd like to thank Cassandra, Sébastien, Julien, Jérémy, Marianne, and Zach for inspiring us, and together we can make a difference for many children across Canada. Thank you to all the donors. We are now going to continue.
West Island is known for its civic spirit. I would like to highlight 3 volunteer-driven organizations that have rallied to support the community during this challenging time. Prior to COVID-19, Katie Johnston was getting ready to open a nonprofit workshop called Fab Zone to make 3D printers and sewing machines available to the community. She quickly changed gears, organizing volunteers to make free PPE for CHSLDs, hospitals, and other centers. Another group called Protection Collective is using 3D printers to produce face shields for frontline workers with the help of sterilized assembly space donated by satellite maker MDA. Finally, a group called Trash Talk, founded by Lucas Highgate to clean up litter in local spaces, has adapted to offer grocery delivery to seniors and others who are homebound. Thank you to the dedicated volunteers of these 3 organizations for all they are doing to keep us safe at this time of pandemic.
We're now going to Mr. Deltel. Mr. Deltel. Thank you, Chair. 80 years ago, Canadian soldiers, including those from the Royal 22nd Regiment, were deployed to Hong Kong to defend its citizens. The people of Hong Kong remember this and are grateful. And this is why a group from Hong Kong decided to donate PPE to Canada to help fight the pandemic. And with the help of my colleague, the member for Stevenson Richmond East, these products were distributed in Western Canada, in Ontario, and in Quebec. On May 29th, I was able to see that 26,000 masks, protection vests, eye protection, and other essential gear were distributed in the capital region. And I'd like to pay tribute to Quebec's health authorities and my provincial counterpart, the member for Chauvin, Mr. Chauvin-Lavesque, for facilitating this operation. And above all, I'd like to thank the generous donors from Hong Kong. Canadians will always be grateful to you. We're going to continue with Mr. Robillard. Mr. Robillard, Chair. In recent decades, food banks have become an integral part of the lives of many people. They do tremendous work for our communities all year long, and even more so during a pandemic. I'm thinking about the various food banks in my riding of Marc-Aurèle-Fortin that work tirelessly to meet the growing demand of our population. Many food banks, in fact, have had to deal with fewer available food items and constantly rising demand. We're talking about more than 8,000 people a week that rely on these food banks. Therefore, I'd like to take advantage of this opportunity to call on the solidarity and generosity of Canadians and encourage them to make donations to ensure the survival of our food banks. Thank you very much, Chair.
Mr. Dollywall, you're on mute.
Sorry. Mr. Chair, in Surrey Newton, Diversity Community Resources Society empowers newcomers to build a better life in Canada. For over 40 years, Diversity's specialized services have been invaluable to thousands of individuals and families trying to find their way in new country. I'm proud to announce that Diversity's Building Resilience for Sustainable Recovery program has been approved for nearly $2.2 million in funding under Health Canada's Substance Abuse and Addictions program. With a focus on culturally appropriate assistance, substance use and mental health treatment will now be offered in multicultural mosaic that is in Surrey. Mr. Chair, I want to acknowledge and commend Diversity for providing critically important services to our community, and I wish them the best of luck with the program.
We'll now go to Ms. Gallant. Ms. Gallant.
Mr. Chair, I'm pleased to acknowledge the tremendous efforts of Renfrew and Nipissing Pembroke residents in keeping the COVID-19 virus at bay and out of the region. So far, there's been one death attributed to the virus. Of the few cases registered, they were brought into our area, which is the real concern in rural areas such as ours. In my riding, people are afraid, but not of catching the virus. They're worried about having no job to return to. They're concerned about losing their homes. Family businesses, already stressed by more government regulation and the carbon tax, are now faced with the prospect of having to close their doors permanently. In the absence of a federal budget and no plan to reopen the economy, the public has lost confidence in this government. Canadians know the longer the federal government keeps us in lockdown, the worse the coming recession will be. It's time for democracy to resume and for Parliament to return.
We'll now continue with Ms. Vandenbelt. Ms. Vandenbelt.
Mr. Chair, as Canadians turn inward to focus on the COVID-19 emergency, we must not forget about human rights abuses around the world. I joined a virtual meeting of MPs from around the world hosted by Parliamentarians for Global Action to establish a parliamentary rapid response team, a network of MPs that will speak out when MPs elsewhere in the world are arrested or face violence or rollbacks of democracy.
Already, calls for urgent action were made with respect to the Malaysian government, which shut down Parliament to avoid a confidence vote. Another alert was sent yesterday regarding the intimidation of parliamentarians in Salvador.
Putting on your COVID-19 face mask, the MPs around the world who are literally silenced, jailed, and isolated just for speaking out on human rights.
Parliamentarians are at the front lines of our democracy, and by working together, we will have a stronger voice. Thank you.
Monsieur Martel.
Mr. Martel, Chair, we have traditionally contributed to the survival of our regional economies. The government made a commitment of $75 million to regional development, even though they already committed this funding in the past. Montreal and the greater region is taking many of these regional funds. And of course, we need to spread the impacts of COVID-19, but we cannot accept that we take regional subsidies and give them to large cities. It is the financial health of Montreal has a direct impact on the regions. The regions need more support to allow for private investment. We need to be more flexible to meet rural needs. Montreal needs the regions and not vice versa.
Before going to the next presentation or the next statement, I just want to remind all the members of the House, especially the front benches on the government and official opposition, that someone is reading and we would like some respect for their statements. We'll go on to Mr. Carey. Mr. Carey.
Mr. Chair, I want to take this time today to congratulate the City of Oshawa, Durham Region, and our many mental health and addiction support organizations on a successful campaign to relocate many of our homeless citizens to Camp Samak in North Oshawa, where they are better protected from COVID-19. The lodging for 25 people also includes showering and laundry facilities, meals prepared by our local Durham College culinary program, addiction and mental health support, and on-site connections with the Ontario Works and Ontario Disability programs. Each resident is also being tested on site. Oshawa has always been a city of the greatest problem solvers and innovators in Canada, and I'm proud to represent those same people that are changing lives today. Even during a pandemic, the leaders of Oshawa find a way to improve the lives of the most vulnerable. I'd like to thank Durham Region Commissioner of Social Services, Stella Danos Papakonstantinou, Councillor Bob Chapman, and Mayor Dan Carter for their tireless work that has made this initiative a roaring success. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We'll now go to Mr. Blakey. Mr. Blakey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As NDP MPs push for a responsible, caring government response to the pandemic, folks at home in Elmwood-Transcona are connecting with people in need and delivering immediate support. Volunteers at the Transcona Food Bank kept it going with volunteers like Dawn and Midge Berry, continuing to feed up to 100 families during the pandemic. Elke Pilan helped out by sewing reusable masks for all the volunteers, and she kept on sewing and exchanged masks for donations to the food bank. The Chalmers Neighborhood Renewal Corporation partnered with Riverwood Church and the Elmwood Community Resource Center to deliver frozen meals to seniors in our community. Volunteers at the Transcona Council for Seniors have been regularly checking in with area seniors and dispatching volunteer drivers to run needed errands. The Elmwood East Kildonan Active Living Center has been coordinating volunteers to pick up groceries and medication for shut-in residents. Above all, kindness and caring will see us through the pandemic. Thank you to everyone in our community who are contributing what they can to that effort.
We are now going to continue with Mr. Desilets. Thank you very much, Chair. Last Saturday was the Canadian Armed Forces Day, which pays tribute every year to current and former members of the Canadian Armed Forces. On behalf of the Bloc Québécois, I would like to underscore the courage and the sacrifice of these men and women who every day protect our democracy and our values. Also, I'd like to add that the current crisis has increased the need to review the disability benefit request system at the Ministry of Veteran Affairs. In fact, the complexity and red tape has meant that to date, 20,233 files have exceeded the standard of a 12-week response period, which involves 19,223 veterans. This means another 17% extra files pending since March 31st. Thus, I call on the government to make an effort for our veterans by pre-authorizing all of these delayed files. These veterans have fought for us, and now it is our turn to fight for them. Thank you very much, Chair.
Go to Mr. Cooper. Mr. Cooper.
Mr. Chair, yesterday in a stunning display of ignorance, the Minister of Heritage stated that the government would be happy to provide the Auditor General with additional resources if only the Auditor General asked. Well, newsflash to the Minister, both the former and current Auditor General have very publicly stated that the office is underfunded by $11 million. As a result, nearly all non-COVID related audits will be put on hold this year. For a government that is spending more than $500 billion a year, surely it can find $11 million, a rounding error, so that the Auditor General can follow the money and do her job. Canadian taxpayers deserve nothing less.
We'll now go to Mr. Virani. Mr. Virani.
Mr. Speaker, I'm a brown-skinned Muslim refugee, but any of the barriers I've faced pale in comparison to those faced by Black people. These last 2 weeks have laid bare for all of us the devastating impact of discrimination on the Black community. But this is not just an American problem. The very same week of George Floyd's murder, my constituent Regis Korchinski-Paquette, a 29-year-old Black woman, died in the presence of police, a death which has galvanized the streets of Toronto. Since that day, repeated incidents of mistreatment by racialized and Indigenous persons at the hands of Canadian police have surfaced. For persons of color, interacting with law enforcement in this country is often frightening and too often lethal. That's an unacceptable state of affairs that we must change. Change starts with the words we use, so let me be very clear. Racism exists in Canada, systemic racism is real, anti-Black racism is pernicious, and Black lives matter. Change also means acting quickly to reform our justice and correction systems and be better allies. I commit to redoubling my efforts to combat racism, and I ask all of us in this chamber to do the same. George, Regis, and all people of color deserve no less. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We'll now proceed to questions to ministers.
Suspend the proceedings twice in order to allow employees who provide support for the sitting to substitute each other in safety. The first question goes to the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Scheer. Mr. Scheer.
Mr. Chair, today the Prime Minister is shamefully misleading Canadians, trying to shirk responsibility for his failures in providing help for people with disabilities. He is letting people with disabilities down. He is the one who waited months before bringing proposals forward to help people with disabilities. And then yesterday, when Conservatives proposed a motion to have Parliament meet to debate this legislation, it was Liberals who said no. So can the Deputy Prime Minister explain why Liberals refused to allow the House to debate this bill yesterday?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm very glad to hear that question because it allows me to make an offer to the Conservative Party to correct what may well have been an honest mistake they made in the parliamentary hurly-burly yesterday. Yesterday, a clear opportunity was offered to all members of this House to have a vote specifically and narrowly on the question of whether we would offer Canadians with disabilities up to $600 of additional.
I'll go back to Mr. Scheer. Mr. Scheer.
Well, Mr. Chair, the mistake yesterday was Liberals shamefully saying no to allow Parliament to deal with that legislation and then disgustingly today trying to play petty politics on the backs of people with disabilities. That's shameful, Mr. Chair, and Canadians won't forget it. Monsieur le Président.
Chair, yesterday, the Globe and Mail revealed that the Minister of Foreign Affairs has 2 mortgages valued at over $1 million with the state-owned Bank of China. Does the Prime Minister believe it is appropriate for his foreign minister to be so personally indebted to the Communist Party of Canada? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
What is shameful is to allow partisan politics and procedural maneuvering to stop Canadians with disabilities who are truly facing additional challenges because of coronavirus. What is shameful and indeed disgusting is to prevent those Canadians from getting that $600. Members of other parties were prepared to support that measure, and in good faith, we would be very prepared to have that vote and allow us all to get that money to Canadians and to fight about other issues.
Go to Mr. Scheer. Mr. Scheer.
Well, Mr. Chair, she must have been talking about herself and her own party during her response, and Conservatives stand ready. The second she wants to recall Parliament, we will be here to get the help that Canadians expect. But the question was about another Liberal minister getting into trouble because of a fancy European property. This time, it's the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Monsieur Champagne, who owns 2 posh apartments in London and owes an arm of the Chinese government over $1 million. Does the Deputy Prime Minister think it's appropriate to have a Minister of the Crown owing an arm of the Chinese government over $1 million?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Minister Champagne disclosed those 2 mortgages along with all other liabilities and assets to the Ethics Commissioner, and they have placed in the online public registry since the minister entered politics. It has been clearly disclosed. Everyone is aware of it, including all relevant government agencies and our Ethics Commissioner, and Canadians have all the transparency they need and deserve.
Mr. Scheer.
Simple question for the Deputy Prime Minister. Has Mr. Champagne's mortgages come up for renewal since he has been a Member of Parliament?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, while I, of course, am extremely familiar with all of the positions our government takes on foreign policy, I'm afraid I'm not familiar with the details of the personal finance.
Go back to Mr. Scheer now. Mr. Scheer.
It's a relevant point because if he was a sitting Member of Parliament when the mortgage came up for renewal and he decided to renew with the bank that is run by the Communist Party of China, the negotiations and the dealings around that would be very, very relevant. Will the Minister of Foreign Affairs disclose what interest rate he is being charged for the 2 mortgages on his 2 London flats?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, since the Conservatives have chosen to go into matters of personal finance and property arrangements of members of this House, I might point out that of the 2 people exchanging ideas right now, one of us lives in government property.
We are now going to continue with Mr. Brunel-Duceppe. Mr. Brunel-Duceppe, thank you very much, Chair. The Canadian Armed Forces military in our long-term care homes ends tomorrow. Before I ask my question, I want to make sure I'm asking it to the right person. If I want to know if the government will extend the CEF mission in long-term care homes, who should I ask the question to, the minister or his office? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you very much for this question, which is very important for all Canadians and for all Quebecers. I can say clearly that the federal government will be there to help seniors in Quebec. It's absolutely important. And obviously, Mr. Brunel-Duceppe, so everything's still unclear. That's what I've understood. Yesterday, however, the Minister of Public Safety confirmed that the CEF mission in long-term care homes would continue until mid-September. But everything wasn't clear because their office right after that said the opposite. So I would like to know who's telling the truth, Chair. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question, and I understand how this issue is concerning Quebecers, and I can speak on behalf of our government, and I can assure you, the member and all Quebecers, that the federal government and the Canadian Armed Forces will be there. I also have to say that we are in discussions with Quebec to decide how this will unfold, and I think everyone agrees that we're going to return to Mr. Brunel-Duceppe. Now, in concrete terms, I don't hear a date, but tomorrow is the deadline. So how do you want 2 governments to reach an agreement when the federal government isn't even in agreement within itself? Can the minister, well, the minister said that the military would stay. Will they? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Chair, I was very clear. Canada will stay there. And I have to add that everyone should thank the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces who, we're now going back to Mr. Brunel-Duceppe. Chair, will there be the military in long-term care homes after tomorrow, yes or no? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Yes. Mr. Brunel-Duceppe. Until when, Chair? Until when? The Honourable Deputy Minister. Until what time? The soldiers are there and they will remain in place until they are no longer needed obviously. Mr. Brunel-Duceppe. So I've understood that you reached an agreement with the Quebec government and it's on the table and signed? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Quebec asked the federal government to help seniors in Quebec. Mr. Brunel-Duceppe. Inaudible? So, Chair, I want her to say it clearly. The soldiers will remain in long-term care homes until mid-September. Did I understand that correctly, Chair? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Chair, I was a journalist, so I tried to clearly choose specific words. What I said was, and what will I say again, is that Canada will be there for them. Canada will be there. Mr. Brunel-Duceppe. Chair, we have heard that the soldiers could be leaving long-term care homes already. The Red Cross could be doing this work, they're saying, and that's not what the Quebec government is asking. Can the minister confirm that the soldiers will remain in place until the Quebec government has said it no longer needs them? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. I have a question for the member. Is the member speaking on behalf of the Quebec government? I thought it was the government of Quebec that speaks for the province. But what I can say, Mr. Brunel-Duceppe, 10 seconds. I'm speaking on behalf of Quebecers. Our nurses and orderlies need help, and they need the help of our military. I want a confirmation, please, Mr. Chair. The Deputy Prime Minister. What I can confirm, and I'm very happy to do so, is that when Quebec needed help to save the lives of seniors, Canada was there. We're going to continue with Mr. Singh.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Canadian men and women living with a disability need help, but the Liberal government has completely failed to help these people. Is the Liberal government ready to set up a program that will help all Canadians living with a disability?
Le Vice-Premier Ministre.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the question. I completely agree with the Leader of the NDP. Canadian men and women living with a disability need assistance. That is why the government is proposing $600 for every Canadian. Back to Mr. Singh.
And it completely misses 60% of Canadians who live with a disability. Now, any help will do, but will the Liberal government consider a plan that helps those who are most vulnerable as well? Because those who are being missed by the Liberal plan are those who are amongst the poorest. Will the Liberals propose a plan that helps all Canadians living with a disability?
Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to thank the member opposite for his really important question, because it highlights what, when you set aside the sound and fury of politics and of parliamentary debate, the most important issue at stake this week, and that is, will we together support Canadians with disabilities or not? Our government wants to do that. We put forward a plan to do it, up to $600.
Go back to Mr. Singh now. Mr. Singh.
I have a direct question for the government. Many people are contacting me because they are afraid that CERB is going to run out and they are not going to have any way to put food on the table. Will the Liberal government extend CERB for families in need?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member opposite for another important question. I would like to commit clearly to Canadians, just as we said at the beginning of the coronavirus health and economic crisis. Our government will be there to support Canadians. We have the fiscal...
We're back to Mr. Singh. Mr. Singh.
We need a more clear answer. Taylor from Windsor is a recent grad. He had a job, but lost that job because of COVID-19. He is on CERB, but CERB is going to run out soon, and he is literally afraid. He is worried that he won't be able to put food on the table. He applies for a job every single day and finds nothing. Will Taylor have the certainty of knowing that CERB will be continued? Yes or no?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
You know, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to say to Taylor and to all Canadians who quite rightly, as the member opposite says, are anxious about their situation, that our government will do whatever it takes to support them. And you know what? Actions do speak louder than words. We have spent $152 billion supporting Canadians. That is nearly 11% of GDP. We have put our money where our mouth is.
We'll now go back to Mr. Singh. Mr. Singh.
Mr. Speaker, Taylor just wants a yes. Taylor wants to know, yes, CERB will be extended. Will it be extended, yes or no?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government's record in supporting Canadians economically through this crisis speaks for itself. Nearly 8 million Canadians supported through this.
Back to Mr. Singh. Mr. Singh.
I didn't ask about the government's record. I'm saying Taylor is worried. He doesn't know if CERB's going to continue or not. Will you continue the CERB, yes or not?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
As I said, Mr. Speaker, our record speaks for itself, and Canadians can have confidence that we intend to continue to support them. We know that this is a
Mr. Singh.
I want to give another really concrete example. I got another message from Derek, who lives in Alberta. Derek is a welder. There is no work for Derek. His family has they lost their home. He's no longer able to live at home, and they've got to move in with his parents. He has to leave them to go and find work, and he hasn't seen them in months. He is searching for work but can't find it. This is a family that would benefit from CERB if it was extended. Will you extend CERB so that families like Derek's can apply for it?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it is a really important question, and I am glad to be asked it because it gives me an opportunity to assure Canadians that just as our government, from the start of the crisis, has been prepared to put the vast fiscal firepower of the federal government behind supporting Canadians, we are going to continue to do that. Now, I've given you a few examples. Let me talk about the wage subsidy, which has been particularly valuable to Albertans. More than 2.
We'll now break for a few minutes, or suspend for actually about 45 seconds while our staff up in the crow's nest changes over, and down in the operating rooms can change over safely.
Okay, we're good to go.
We'll now continue with Mr. Upal. Mr. Upal.
Mr. Chair, over the last 10 years, the size of the government has doubled, but the number of audits conducted by the Auditor General has gone down by half. Massive Liberal spending programs lack basic accountability and transparency, such as their $180 billion infrastructure program, for which they can't even provide a full list of the number of projects. What is the government trying to hide by starving the Auditor General's office by not properly funding it?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm delighted to take this question and to signal both the urgency and the transparency of our actions, especially in the current context. We look forward to providing the support that the Auditor General needs and requires, as we've done over the last few years. We know how important her work is, and we'll continue to work with her as well.
Mr. Upal.
Mr. Speaker, they say that they want to work with her, and that's nice to hear, but the fact is that the former interim Auditor General testified at two public accounts committees that he asked the government twice for additional funds, first in 2018 and then in 2019, only for those requests to be ignored. Canadians deserve to know how their money is being spent. This government must be properly audited. When will this government finally be accountable to taxpayers and fully fund the Auditor General's office?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, to provide the information that Canadians need and deserve is exactly our priority. We are doing this over time, especially in emergency context. We are pleased. We were pleased in 2018 to increase substantially the budget of the Auditor General, and we are going to work closely with her. By the way, congratulating her for her important nomination.
Mr. Upal.
Mr. Speaker, the fact is that the newly appointed Auditor General started just earlier this week, and before she even started, she took up her post, she expressed concerns about the lack of funding from this government for her office. Will this government give the Auditor General the money that her office requires to properly fund the Auditor General's office? Yes?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and that's a great opportunity. I'm grateful for that to continue and say that not only are we proud of her nomination, but we also are proud of the important work that she will do on behalf of all Canadians and all members of this House to make sure that Canadians and members of this House are able to follow the important investments that we're making in the emergency.
Back to Mr. Upal. Mr. Upal.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, it's nice to hear that they continue to make more investments, but what we need is that as their spending goes up, the number of audits should actually go up, not be cut down, and that's the situation right now. Now, Tuesday, the Finance Committee unanimously approved a Conservative motion calling on this government to fully fund the Auditor General, and for her to fully audit all federal programs and any other work that she deems appropriate. Will this government listen to its own members that voted for that motion to respect taxpayer dollars and fully fund the Auditor General?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're proud and pleased to see that the Conservatives did make that motion, given the fact that in 2014 they cut the budget of the Auditor General. We are working in a different framework. We are going to make sure that the Auditor General, and again, congratulations for her nomination, has all the tools that she needs to do the work that Canadians and members of Parliament expect of her.
Mr. Upal.
Mr. Speaker, this government loves to reach back in history and try to blame someone else for their mistakes. Yes, several years ago, actually 2 Auditor Generals ago, the Auditor General at that time volunteered reductions to his office, but this did not affect the number of audits that they conducted. Right now, the fact is that spending has doubled and the number of audits has gone down. How does the Treasury Board President explain that?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. We all agree, I think, and including the opposition members, we all agree on the important role that the Auditor General in general and the new Auditor General in particular have in our democracy. That's why we increased her budget the budget of the Auditor General at that time in 2018, leading to creation of more positions in that office to provide the important information that Canadians need and deserve.
Mr. Upal, a question of 10 seconds or less, please.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask that the many businesses in my riding, especially those that opened up recently, do not qualify for any government support. They are ready to open, they're ready to hire employees, but they're not getting the support that they need. Why won't this government support those businesses?
The Honourable Minister, in 15 seconds or less, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I have too little time to answer that question, and many of my colleagues would be able to answer it really well because we are doing everything we need to do to go through this crisis together.
We'll now continue with Mr. Schmale. Mr. Schmale.
Thank you, Committee Chair. Last night, the Globe and Mail revealed that the Minister of Foreign Affairs has 2 mortgages valued at nearly $2 million with the state-owned Bank of China. What interest rate is Minister Champagne paying?
The Honourable Minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. The Minister lived many years in the UK and he purchased 2 apartments in London, one in 2009, the other one in 2013, which he continues to own. And since entering politics, the 2 mortgages and other liabilities and assets have been fully disclosed.
Mail.
Does the Prime Minister believe it's appropriate for his foreign minister to be so personally indebted to the Communist Party of China?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, as I said, Mr. Speaker, the two mortgages and other liabilities have been fully disclosed to the ethics commissioners and placed into the online public registry. Mr. Speaker, everything's public.
Mr. Schmale.
Committee Chair, the foreign minister is required to obtain a high security clearance, not only to attend cabinet, but because he has access to some of Canada's most secret intelligence. Can the Prime Minister explain how his minister obtained the security clearance, given his financial obligations to the Communist Party of China?
Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, this could be long. As I said earlier, that since entering politics, the two mortgages and liabilities and assets have been fully disclosed to the Ethics Commissioner. Fully disclosed, Mr. Speaker, and placed on the online public registry. Everything's public.
Mr. Schmale.
The minister has placed himself in a blatant conflict of interest. It's absolutely inappropriate for him to have a financial relationship with a Chinese government-owned bank. Will the minister immediately remove himself from this conflict and find a new bank to do business with?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, that's a little bit far-fetched, Mr. Speaker. I thought this was a important meeting to discuss the pandemic and point things that related to the life of Canadians, creations of jobs, saving jobs, helping Canadians across the country.
Mr. Schmale.
I'm going to ask the same question. I'm going to have to repeat the same answer.
Committee Chair, there seems to be a real conflict of interest here. Maybe the question should be, is this why Minister Champagne could barely say thank you to Taiwan for the medical supplies they sent us?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, once again, everything has been fully disclosed to the Ethics Commissioner, placed online on the public registry. Everything is public, Mr. Speaker. It is fully public.
Mr. Schmale.
Thank you, Speaker. 2 Canadians have been jailed in China since 2018. Is the Minister of Global Affairs working to free them, or is this conflict hampering those efforts?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the honourable member that the 2 Canadians remain our absolute priority, and we are going to continue to tirelessly work to secure their immediate release and to stand up for them as a government, as Canadians.
Go back to Mr. Schmale. Mr. Schmale.
Thank you, Committee Chair. We're going to switch gears here. Speaker, Conservatives are on record in support of the development and implementation of the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls National Action Plan. We, like Canadians across the country, want to see real and measurable improvements to the lives of Indigenous women and girls and have been waiting patiently for over a year for the National Action Plan. When will the Prime Minister release this?
The Honourable Minister.
As the member knows, this is the first ever national action plan, a first ever national public inquiry that requires all of our partners in the provinces and territories to be with us. Our hearts are with all the families of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and the survivors. We will not let them down, and we will work diligently with our partners to get this done to prevent this national tragedy.
Mail.
Thank you, Committee Chair. The Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations had no issue signing a backroom deal and, in fact, had a signing over Skype, but she can't get the action plan out the door. So will the Prime Minister live up to his responsibilities to the families of the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and release this action plan today?
The Honourable Minister.
I think the member doesn't quite understand how the commitment was that this plan would be co-developed with all of the provinces and the territories, First Nations, Inuit, Métis, families and survivors. We are working every day to get this done, and such that it will be accountable with the indicators and the measurements that would allow this to make sure that we will make sure that we are making progress in stopping this national tragedy.
Nous allons maintenant continuer avec Monsieur Godin.
We will now move on to Mr. Godin. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, small and medium businesses are being left behind. Let's talk about the Canadian Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance Program. The eligibility criteria does not line up with the reality of our entrepreneurs. Plus, some of them have to come in agreement with the property owners who have to apply for financial assistance. In Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier, there's a chiropractic clinic that offered emergency essential services to its clients, which then disqualified it for the program. Another business in construction can't convince the property owner to apply for financial assistance. What is the government waiting for to amend this program? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for that question. Businesses like those that he just described have been at the heart of our work in supporting them through COVID-19 and through this difficulty. The Canada Emergency Business Account has helped over 660,000 businesses get those operating funds to help them manage through this period. We have deferred costs like the GST and HST and customs duties payments. And on commercial rent, we are working with provinces and territories to make sure that they introduce complementary measures to make sure that this program is successful. Nothing is more important to us than helping.
We will now continue with Mr. Godin. Mr. Chair, Madam Minister, I have a great deal of respect for you, but you're not responding to the needs of our businesses to relaunch Canada's economy. Last Wednesday, I raised a question in the House virtually about the Canadian Emergency Business Account to find out when announced changes would be implemented. The Prime Minister announced on May 19th an improvement to the program in order to include family-owned SMEs that pay out in dividends and SMEs that employ contract workers and entrepreneurs that use their personal bank account. Well, Mr. Chair, entrepreneurs are still waiting. It's June 11th. Last week, I was told that it was now available, and yet it still is not. I would like to inform the Minister that this is not accessible for these categories of businesses. I will ask the question again. When will this program be accessible? Le Ministre. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for his hard work in raising those issues of small businesses. And indeed, it's those businesses all across the country that we have from day one been listening to, and those entrepreneurs who we want to respond to, and we have. We've created the Canada Emergency Response, we've created the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy that's helping them keep their employees. And in this restart, it's going to help them keep those employees so that they can get on that road to restarting and helping our economy. But I'm also really pleased to say that the expansion to the business account, the $40,000 interest-free loan, will be available within days. Within days, those entrepreneurs, those sole proprietor, those family businesses that are paying themselves through dividends and their employees through dividends, those who are paying through...
We're going back to Mr. Godin. Mr. Chair, it's urgent to act in certain files, especially when the government thinks that it's going to pay off at election time. And yet, last week, I was told that this measure would be available in a few days. Could we please find out when this is going to happen? We need to respect businesses that need help. We're pleading for help for our businesses. It's time to act. Can the minister say when they will be eligible? The Honourable Minister.
I want to thank the honourable member, and in a few short days, through the banks and the credit unions, those incredible small businesses will have access to this funding support. I might say over 660,000 businesses already are getting this help. So many businesses are using these funds to help manage through this difficult time. And into recovery, they are going to be so important. We have the utmost respect for those businesses that are all over the community.
We're going back to Mr. Godin. About 15 seconds. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to inform Parliament that Canadians are worried about the attitude of this minority Liberal government. While adapting to COVID-19, they're worried about their own future. This government has lost the control of its expenditures. When will we be able to get an economic update? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Chair, you know from the very beginning of this crisis, we have emphasized that Canadians are a priority. We've been transparent and open with the expenditures we have made to support them. As soon as it's possible to have clear projections, we will present an economic update.
Continue with Ms. Stubbs. Ms. Stubbs.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Well, there'll be no economy and no economic update if the Liberals don't help the oil and gas sector survive. After 5 years of bad Liberal policies that devalued Canadian energy companies, here's an example. If Athabasca Oil asks for a $400 million LEAF loan, the government can own 50% of the company based on current low stock prices, on top of the crazy predatory 14% rate by year 5. The government must fix the mess they helped make. But why is the finance minister using this pandemic to seize significant control of Canadian oil and gas employers?
Well, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for the question. We have been working diligently with industry to provide supports both through liquidity and, of course, through the inactive orphan well program, where we have seen almost an oversubscription working with provincial governments in 3 provinces, in Alberta, in Saskatchewan, and in British Columbia.
Ms. Stubbs.
Well, Minister, it's hard not to notice that the only funding that has actually flowed is that required for the end of the industry. And it's been 78 days since the finance minister said help for the oil and gas sector was on the way, in quote, hours. 44 days ago, the Minister of Natural Resources said basically the same thing as today, that the BDC loans for small oil and gas companies would be, quote, rolled out as quickly as possible. But oil and gas reps say that not a single company, not one, has received the promised liquidity through BDC, loan guarantees through EDC, or funding through the Methane Reduction Fund. So press releases aren't real action, and the Liberals aren't helping workers if companies can't or won't get the support that they need. What day will the BDC loans actually be open for applications? Anybody, or this is classic?
Honourable
Mr. Speaker.
No one knows.
No, just waiting for the acknowledgement from the chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say, first of all, this is not an end of industry. The inactive orphan well program is helping thousands of workers in good jobs. This is a work that was had to occur at some point anyway. We thought it would be a good time to do it now. It helps the environment. It keeps people going as we get through the COVID and financial crisis. And weeks ago, we opened applications for the BCAP, Business Credit Availability Program, to support SMEs. That they make up 85% of the jobs in their sector. We've opened applications for measures that will be available to larger players through the LEAF program. We will continue to work with industry, support workers, to continue to do so to get through this unprecedented challenge.
Mrs. Stubbs. Ms. Stubbs.
Well, of course, I also support the efforts for recovery and remediation of orphan and abandoned wells, because I brought forward a private member's bill that would unlock the private sector to do that. But in fact, as of today, the minister should know the BDC loans are not actually available to small and medium-sized oil and gas producers. And the LEAF program is so predatory that so far no companies have either applied or will access it. Now, to help the economy recover, imagine we would support the private sector. MP Polyev and I called on the government to work with regulators to expedite assessments for $20 billion in oil and gas projects. But guess what? The Liberals recently chose to delay the Nova Gas expansion, even though it was recommended for approval to Cabinet 4 months ago. Why are the Liberals again delaying yet another pipeline expansion at the very worst time?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for that very good question. And I want to share that BDC and EDC have been steadfast working throughout this pandemic crisis to make sure that the range of lending products that we have put out into the marketplace makes its way to small and medium-sized businesses, and particularly those that are so important throughout Alberta and in the energy sector. I just want to assure the member that BDC and EDC is working steadfast to make sure that those loans absolutely get out to those small and medium-sized businesses. Nothing is more important to us than helping save those jobs and save those businesses during this very difficult time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ms. Stubbs.
The Liberals just keep saying the same thing over and over and over again, but it isn't actually doing anything in reality. The loans, it's like being in a twilight zone. Like, the loans are not actually available for small oil and gas companies, and the Liberals should stop misleading Canadians and letting them down. At the Hibernia oil platform in Newfoundland and Labrador, it sounds like workers may start getting laid off tomorrow. 260 people could lose their jobs. So again, where is the help the government has promised?
The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the honourable member's comment about what is happening here on Canada's offshore. As the honourable member knows, I am here in St. John's. I'm fully aware of the challenges that the offshore here is going through. We are working with industry and we are working with the provinces for some very unique solutions for the offshore that don't necessarily work for the onshore. There are unique challenges here, but capital is an issue, and we intend on finding solutions that will work effectively here on the ground.
We'll now continue with Mr. Morantz. Mr. Morantz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can the Deputy Prime Minister confirm that the $2.5 million in Canadian taxpayers' dollars provided to the WHO and UNICEF for the COVID-19 response in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza is not being sent to organizations or implementing partners with ties to groups listed on Canada's terrorist entity list?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me be very clear that Canada is stepping up on the world stage when it comes to COVID-19, particularly in vulnerable contexts through which the West Bank and Gaza are. And we have very strict rules in place when it comes to ensuring and tracing the money that we have. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Morantz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In 2018, GAC provided $1 million to UNICEF for a project with the PFLP-tied NGO Union of Health Work Committees. And so this happened just last year, that Canadian funds went to UNICEF, and this has happened in the past. What oversight mechanisms is the minister referring to that are actually in place to ensure Canadian taxpayers' dollars are not being utilized by such organizations and are being used strictly for COVID-related humanitarian activities? What mechanisms?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as I will reiterate, all of GAC's programming everywhere in the world is strictly monitored and strictly evaluated. We have very robust mechanisms in place, and I would be happy to have a further conversation with the member. Additionally, we recognize that we need to support the poorest and the most vulnerable, and that is why we've provided additional funding to organizations in the West Bank and Gaza, but around the world, because we recognize that until everyone everywhere is safe from COVID-19, nobody is safe. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Morantz.
Still don't have an answer, Mr. Chair, as to whether it's happened or not. It just happened last year. And I'd appreciate hearing what specifically the mechanisms are. But will this Liberal government increase its transparency and publish information regarding organizations, implementing partners, and activities receiving Canadian taxpayer dollars for the COVID-19 response in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza? Will they publish that information?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That information is available, which is why the member could quote that we have given money to the WHO and to UNICEF. All of GAC program funding is available on our website. If he has further questions, I will be happy to respond to those. But just as it is available to him, so too is it available to all Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Morantz.
That's just simply incorrect, Mr. Chair. Although it is published that the WHO and UNICEF receive these monies, the implementing organizations that those organizations provide funds to are not published, and the minister should get her facts straight. Budget 2018 indicated this government's commitment to enhancing transparency in Canada's international assistance programming. Budget 2019 allocated $788 million to international humanitarian assistance. Can the minister confirm the Government of Canada is not funding terrorist-related organizations as part of any COVID-19 related international humanitarian assistance?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think all members in this House would agree that Canadians play an important role when it comes to humanitarian affairs. For example, the director of the World Food Programme is predicting a doubling of people who are going into food crisis because of COVID-19. Whether it's providing humanitarian assistance through direct food assistance, ensuring that there are medical supplies and capacities, I firmly believe that Canadians think that we should be providing this crucial support to the world's most needy and most most vulnerable. As I have said, Global Affairs Canada has strong enforcement and oversight mechanisms, and I will be happy to have a further conversation with the member and enable him to speak directly to officials if he would like more details. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Morantz.
Well, I look forward to receiving that information as to which implementing organizations are actually receiving Canadian tax dollars funds. Just turning to the CRA for a second, I noted in the supplementary estimates there are $0 new requested for CRA. CRA has been a major implementer of the emergency programs. Does CRA have adequate resources to continue implementing the emergency programs or not?
Well, Minister.
Monsieur le Président,
Chair, the CRA's priority is to ensure payments for emergency measures are made quickly to Canadians that are eligible. We've established protection measures to ensure that payments are issued correctly. And like all other agencies, we will be resuming audit activities at a later date. And I've noted that payments were made. We are now going to continue to Mr. Perron. Yes, thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to share my time with the member for Beauport, Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans. Mr. Chair, 2 months ago to this day, the Bloc warned the government that it was irresponsible to entrust the temporary quarantine of temporary foreign workers to farmers. It shirked its responsibility by promising funds that no one even saw. My question is, does the government realize that the breakout of this virus we've seen across the territory is its fault? The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Chair. We are obviously very concerned by this issue. The Minister of Health, the Minister of Immigration, Agriculture, we're all working together to find a better solution and also working with local public health authorities. We're taking this very seriously. We are very sad that we've had sick workers and even some who have passed away. Chair, with all due respect, we're fed up of hearing that the government is working hard. We want clear answers. It takes leadership. The federal government shirked its responsibilities, passed it on to farmers. And are they going to accept its responsibility? We've seen Veg Pro that had 18 cases of COVID-19. They had to assume high costs to hire a nurse. So, because they're taking the responsibility. Can the government stand up and pay their expenses? Chair, we're taking this situation very seriously. We're talking about the health and the lives of people right now, and that is why we've responded very quickly by offering $50 million to help our employers in general to welcome foreign workers and to ensure that they have the means to do a 14-day quarantine. And I'd also like to underscore that a 14-day period of isolation is going very well, and often it's afterwards when there's exchanges with the community that there are risks of transmission. Mr. Perron. Mr. Chair, we're in the House today, and we're asking the government to assume its responsibilities to cover all these costs and pay farmers who've had to take measures. We don't want more paperwork. This is a serious issue, and I agree with one point, because this is serious. We are talking about human lives, and it's time for the federal government to assume its responsibilities. The Honourable Minister. Chair, if we are certainly accepting our responsibilities, and you've seen how many measures we've set up to help all Canadians broadly, to help companies as well, workers, foreign temporary workers, $50 million we've put forward to help them in the agricultural sector. And this will allow, we're now going to go for a pause for a few seconds to allow the chair to switch.
Alors, je donne...
I give the floor to Ms. Desbiens now. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Today, I'm going to discuss the Rideau Vert Theatre today, which for the 7th time in 10 years has been denied a subsidy by the Canadian Arts Council, which was essential. The Rideau Vert is North America's oldest Francophone theatre. So I'd like to know what the Minister of Heritage will do to help out the Rideau Vert Theatre. The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank my colleague for her question. As she knows full well, the Canadian Arts Council is an independent organization that offers that funding, and it establishes its own programs without any political interference. Moreover, these subsidies are offered through a committee of experts involving peers, various artists, and other arts professionals across Canada. Thank you, Ms. Desbiens. I'm not sure that the cultural sector will be happy with this answer. The Arts Council falls under his department, and the theatre is in just across the street from his riding. And I know that he has the power to do something. If the Arts Council doesn't make the right decision, perhaps he could intervene and help out the theatre. The Honourable Minister, I'd like to thank my colleague for her question. We established processes that are not political with respect to funding of arts, and my colleague wants to make these processes more political, and I don't think that that's what our artists and cultural sector is asking us. Thank you. Ms. Desbiens. I'm convinced that the Arts Council would like to recognize the Rideau Vert as a cultural institute, and that where things get tough, it lost its status, even though the rest of the sector recognizes it. And this has just been a question of terminology, and I'm sure that this could be changed. The Honourable Minister. Madam Chair, I'd like to repeat that these subsidies are granted through a peer-based council and with artists from the sector that decide whether to give grants or not with respect to funding. In the case of the Rideau Vert Theatre, there was a committee of experts, of peers, decided that the subsidy should not be granted.
Mr. Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be sharing my time with the member from Brome-Missisquoi. Madam Chair, in Waterloo Region this past week, there have been numerous rallies and marches of solidarity condemning racism and injustice in all its forms. Peaceful demonstrations like these have highlighted the need to do better and to be better as a community and as a nation. In my riding of Kitchener-Conestoga, I've heard from concerned citizens and community and faith-based leaders who shared their emotional stories and are turning to our government to lead the way to a more inclusive society. Although we are apart, we can stand together, united. Racism can be difficult to discuss, and it will be even more difficult to overcome. But we must have these conversations. We cannot remain silent. We must take action, and we must do what's necessary, even when it is difficult. That is what Canadians do. Can the Minister of Diversity, Inclusivity and Youth explain how we can address these issues head-on, what steps we have taken, and what we can do as a nation to ensure everyone is treated equally and has the same opportunities here in Canada? Thank you, Madam.
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Chair, I thank the MP for Kitchener-Conestoga for taking a stand and not choosing silence. Anti-Black, anti-Indigenous, anti-Asian racism exists. It is ingrained within our institutions, and we can no longer choose to ignore it. Keeping silent is to condone racism. The PM has tasked me to work with colleagues to develop policies that tackle systemic discrimination and unconscious bias within our institutions, including anti-Black racism. The member asked what we can do. We can listen. We can take these voices seriously, and right now we have the opportunity to build back better and advance policies and programs informed by lived experiences. Our institutions have an opportunity to internalize the criticisms and concerns being raised. They can listen and learn from the stories being shared by the many communities speaking out against injustice and become more inclusive. Additionally, Madam Speaker, I commend the member for Kitchener-Conestoga for being a strong voice for all his constituents. This Pride season, the LGBTQ2 communities and allies in Kitchener-Conestoga can rest assured their MP will also stand up for them. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madame Bessette.
Ms. Bessette. You are on mute, Ms. Bessette. Ms. Bessette, you are on mute. I'm back. Thank you, Madam Chair. The tourism industry allows the world to discover our beautiful country while highlighting its culture, diversity, and natural beauty. Tourism is also a key economic driver and a source of pride and local jobs in many communities across Canada, including my riding of Brome-Missisquoi. However, it's also one of the sectors hardest hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. The tourism industry faces unique challenges and needs our support during this exceptional time. Can the tourism minister tell us more about what the government is doing to support this important industry, which is the livelihood of so many Canadians? Thank you. I'd like to thank my colleague. She represents a wonderful region of Quebec, a region which has many tourism businesses, restaurants, etc. To help out this region and the sector, and we have adopted several measures. First, we've extended the wage subsidy. We reached an agreement with the government for commercial rent support, and also we've also helped out with the liquidity of companies. Now we want to go further, and that's why in the Eastern Townships region, where her riding is located, we've invested $6.5 million with EDC, and we're also going to be supporting local tourism campaigns by investing $30 million in Destination Canada. And we have other good news coming up for the tourism industry in Quebec, and so she can have a trust in their future, and as do all of her riding. Thank you.
Madame Bessette?
Ms. Bessette? I am done my question. Thank you.
We now go to Ms. Ashton.
I'd like to split my time with the member for Edmonton Strathcona. Madam Speaker, imagine you're in Pucketawagan, a remote First Nation in northern Manitoba. Like every First Nation in your region, you are doing everything possible to lock down and keep your community safe. Then, out of nowhere, you find out from the national media that you're getting tents that you never asked for. Then you find out that the government purchased these tents from a company connected to a former provincial Liberal cabinet minister, a Liberal who sat on the government's COVID-19 Supply Council. There they go again, another Liberal government benefiting its Liberal friends. So what is Indigenous Services doing to get to the bottom of this tent scandal?
The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister. Can we stop the timer? Can we stop the timer?
Mr. Speaker, my question was for Indigenous Services.
The Honourable Minister.
And is the timer being stopped?
Yes, it has been stopped. Yes, Ms. Ashton.
Carolyn, you're on mute.
Madam Speaker.
Minister, you're on mute.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you. I thank the honourable member for the question, and I do believe that the understanding of what are tents is a misunderstanding. A lot of the communities have been asking for these very large portable structures that can be put up immediately to be able to isolate infected patients or protect family members. And I'm sure that
this is not the answer. This community did not ask for tents, and that's what we need to get to the bottom of.
Please go through the chair, please. Ms. Ashton, please, can you go through the chair, please? You do not interrupt like that. I'm sorry.
Well, the question is to the Minister of Indigenous Services. This is under his department. So I wonder where the minister is, and the question is about tents that were not asked for, not a clarification.
Ms. Ashton, the questions are being directed to the ministers who are available to answer. The Honourable Minister has the floor, please.
I thank the member for the question. I also hope that she will be watching the press conference with the Minister of Indigenous Services, who is announcing the money for Indigenous businesses and tourism, and that is a very, very good news for today. We will certainly look into her concerns, but I do believe that the response to COVID-19 has been extraordinarily good because of the hard work of the communities, and we will look at.
Ms. Ashton?
Well, my second question is to the Minister of Procurement. Let's look at the Liberals' approach to procurement. The COVID-19 Supply Council, created by the Minister to advise her on procurement, has people like David McHattie with the oil industry and a pipeline company, Jody Hall, who represents for-profit private long-term care homes. They and other lobbyists from the COVID-19 Supply Council have met with the representatives from this government at least 218 times. What are they discussing with the government? It's support for big oil, or it's support for for-profit long-term care homes? But don't worry, says the government. They were asked to fill out a form and volunteer.
The Honourable Minister.
What does the government expect?
Madam Speaker, as I mentioned to the Honourable Member at committee earlier this week, the members of the Supply Council have absolutely no role in procurement. Absolutely no role in procurement. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Ms. McPherson.
This government made people living with disabilities wait 3 months for an announcement, 5 weeks after they promised to do it with delay, and when they did announce it, they left over 60% of Canadians living with disabilities behind. It is shameful, Madam Speaker. 3 weeks ago, the Prime Minister promised changes to help more small businesses. Today, the minister said they have to wait even more days. Without these changes, in my riding of Edmonton-Strathcona, Johnny's Tattoo Shop, Mark's Chiropractic Office, Jen's Dance Studio, Brittany's Learning Centre might all have to shut their doors for good. When exactly? What date exactly will this help come? And why have the Liberals made small businesses in my community wait so long?
The Honourable Minister.
I thank the honourable member for her question. I'll speak to the disability question. Madam Speaker, that is completely misrepresenting the help we've given to millions of people with disabilities already to date. Workers with disabilities have access to CERB in record numbers. Many people with disabilities got the GST one-time payment. Families of children with disabilities got the CCB payment. Seniors with disabilities got the seniors payment. And community organizations focused on serving people with disabilities are accessing the $350 million community fund. Madam Speaker, we are committed to people with disabilities. We know there's more to do. We're trying to do more. But despite our best efforts, political interference is really thwarting our attempts to make good on this.
Person.
Madam Speaker, that is really frustrating because that wasn't the actual question I asked. Small business owners are also struggling with rent. And if their landlords won't apply for the Liberal rent scheme, they may not survive another month. My constituents, Doris and Patrick, own one of the best French restaurants in Edmonton, and they can't get rent relief from their landlord. Chantel, who runs a dance studio in Lendrum, cannot get her landlord to apply either. When will these small business owners be able to get the help that they were promised as tenants?
Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, our government is working closely with provinces and territories to deliver the Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance. And although the tenant-landlord relationship is ultimately a responsibility of provinces and territories, our government has stepped up to support businesses. And we have brought tools through the CMHC to make sure that there is availability and relief for rent. We're continuing to monitor this program, and we will continue to support businesses throughout this pandemic.
Mr. Kelly.
How much interest will Canadians have to pay to service this year's estimated $260 billion deficit?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And currently, we are monitoring our investments, and we're making sure that we're supporting Canadians, supporting businesses, and making sure we're protecting jobs. That's what we're doing currently.
Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. I didn't ask whether or not you were supporting Canadians. I asked how much will the debt service cost be, and I ask again, how much will it cost to service this year's deficit?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, no Canadian should be having trouble paying their bills right now. That's what we're putting our priority on. Our different measures are going to support families, they're supporting businesses, they're supporting workers, and we're going to continue to put...
Mr. Kelly.
On Tuesday's address from the cottage, the Prime Minister refused to give a straight answer to the question about the cost to service Canada's debt. So again, what will it cost to service the additional debt that is resulting from the COVID response measures?
The Honourable Minister.
Again, Madam Speaker, no Canadians have to worry about paying their bills at this time, and that's why we entered into this crisis with a strong fiscal position, and Canada is ready and able to respond to the challenges posed by COVID-19. We're acting right now, and we will be unwavering in our family, business, and worker support.
Mr. Kelly.
Well, thank goodness for the previous government that gave this government the fiscal position that it inherited. The Parliamentary Budget Officer and private sector economists seem to be able to do their jobs and provide economic updates. Why will this government not do so?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, again, I would like to say that we are bringing forward different programs to support families, to support businesses, to make sure that we protect jobs. And with our strong and fiscal position, we are ready and able to respond to the challenge posed by COVID-19. And we will continue to make sure that we monitor and continue to invest in Canadians during this pandemic.
Kelly.
Mr. Fortier, you didn't even try to answer that question. I asked you about the Parliamentary Budget Officer. Why will Minister Fortier not answer the question? The question was, why will this government not provide an economic update? The PBO is able to do their job. Economists in the private sector can do their jobs. Why will this government not provide an economic update?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I will speak through you to my honourable member. And we know that Canada's economy is in a period of extraordinary uncertainty. And that's why we will continue to be open, transparent, and provide the necessary information on how much spending we've done to support Canadians. And once it is possible to provide a clear economic projection, we will provide an update.
Mr. Kelly.
Chair, the minister is not being transparent and clear. She's being evasive. She's not answering the questions. Small business owners in my riding this week have contacted me, one that pays himself through dividends from his private corporation, and another that is an owner-operator who does not have a formal payroll. Both have reported to me this week they still can't access the CEBA. It was weeks ago that the government claimed to have addressed this issue. When will these people who have fallen through the cracks of these aid measures get access to the CEBA?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you to my colleagues.
I want to thank the honourable member for that question. And I want to assure the honourable member that those loans, the expanded criteria for the bank loan, will be available through Canada's financial institutions, credit unions, banks within days. And the new criteria, financial institutions have had to adapt to make sure that that they're able to do this programming to the new applicants. I can assure you everyone is working as hard as we can. Nothing is more important to us than helping those small businesses from coast to coast to coast. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Short question.
Of people in my riding work in the oil and gas industry. At Finance Committee last week, a witness described the LEAF program as, quote, a Faustian bargain masquerading as a payday loan with a smile. When will the government design actually realistic relief for the energy sector and the hundreds of thousands of Canadians that work in it?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have been working with the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers and with industry from the get-go, from the beginning of this crisis. Their number one issue was liquidity. We have worked with them from the get-go to make sure that that liquidity was offered. And as we get further and further along, we will continue to work with them to fine-tune it to make sure it does what it is meant to do, which is to keep those companies in place to ensure that we have jobs, to ensure that we get through this hole.
Nous allons prendre une pause maintenant de quelques...
We'll take a short break of a few minutes to allow our teams to do a changeover.
Merci.
Dean, short nights. Short nights. Nights.
Nous allons reprendre maintenant.
We will now resume.
Mr. Dalton.
Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, Croatian Canadians living in Canada have a right to vote in Croatia's upcoming parliamentary elections. Why is this government refusing to allow the Croatian embassy or the consulate in Canada host polling?
Well, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Madam Speaker, I'm sorry. Thank you for the honourable member for that question. I will have to get back to you on that one. Thank you very much.
Dalton?
Speaker, when the second round of Canada Summer Jobs applications was announced, it was mentioned that additional funding could be forthcoming. Now I'm hearing from qualified applicants like the Maple Ridge Downtown Business Association who are being denied. Service Canada is telling members of Parliament to tell applicants, sorry, there wasn't enough money. Well, Madam Chair, why should we do the government's bidding for them? Not enough money? Madam Chair, how is it possible that the Liberal government has $105 million to spend on jets for the minister and her colleagues to fly around the country and not enough money for a $4,000 youth summer job in my community?
Honourable Minister.
They're spending double what Harper spent.
I thank the member for his question, and I'll remind him that since our government came into to power, we have doubled the number of Canada Summer Jobs available to communities across the country. This year, as part of our $9 billion investment in students, we created an additional 116,000 jobs. I would say the fact that there are so many jobs out there is great news for young people, Madam Speaker. This program is indeed oversubscribed because of the flexibilities we added and a second round of calls. We're working to see how we can support businesses, but let's not forget, Madam Speaker, that this is great news for our future.
Dalton?
Madam Chair, the Maple Ridge Downtown Business Association was going to use their summer jobs funding to hire 2 downtown ambassadors to work with struggling small businesses, assist them with signage and pamphlets, as well as educating the public regarding social distancing, directing them to hand washing stations, and providing masks. They have received Canada Summer Jobs funding for years and have been a tremendous service to our community. I've been in communication with the executive director for the past months and told her that based upon their history, past funding, how important the work is, especially during this time of COVID, that I was confident they would receive funding. We just had to wait and wait and wait. How in the world is it possible, Madam Chair, that the government has money for private jets but no money for a nonprofit that is trying to help struggling small businesses and improve public health and safety?
Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I am happy to work with the member on his CSJ applications and allotment, and I can tell him that I know how beautiful Maple Ridge is. I've been there many times, and I look forward to figuring out how we can indeed support employers in his riding and employers across the country as we invest in more jobs for young people. Thank you.
Mr. Dalton.
Despite what this government claims about having adequate supplies of PPE for those who need it most, our frontline workers and those assisting vulnerable populations, the reality is far different. Last week, I delivered masks to our local Legion, care homes, and our seniors, and I'm arranging another batch for child care facilities, local businesses, and nonprofits. These masks did not come to me from the government, but rather they were a generous donation from overseas. Why is it, Madam Chair, that our most vulnerable populations have to wait for Hong Kong philanthropists to step up and do the job their government should have been doing?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I thank the honourable member for the intervention. I will say that he is mistaken in terms of the PPE that has been coming in to the federal government from international and domestic sources. Over half of the face shields that we have ordered have been produced domestically. And in addition, we have millions of gloves, gowns, hand sanitizers, N95 respirators, and surgical masks coming in daily with over 50 flights from China with PPE. Our stock is continuing to increase and our domestic capacity is continuing to grow. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Mr. Dalton, very, very short question.
Going back to for the Canada Summer Jobs, we have organizations by riding who've been doing nothing but waiting for this government with respect to the jobs. They've had to wait longer for applications since winter. They've had to have revised criteria. Again, through you to the chair, how does this government justify spending on monies like fridges for Loblaws and private jets for themselves, while nonprofits, in my riding, see their funding that they have so long relied on be cut or slashed?
Honourable Minister, very short answer.
Madam Speaker, this year we've tried to provide flexibility in the program to maximize the number of jobs that are available for young people. I would say it's been a success. It's been, I thank members of Parliament for their contributions because they've had to dig in on this, but I think our young people are grateful as well.
We are now going to Mr. Deltel. Monsieur Deltel, à votre tour.
Oui, bien bonjour, Madame la Présidente.
Yes, Madam Chair, delighted to speak with you today. Madam Chair of the committee, is there a member of the government that could tell us how much is Canada's deficit?
Honorable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Madame la Présidente, depuis le début de cette...
Madam Chair, from the beginning of this crisis, we have emphasized and put the priority on Canadian men and women. We've developed many programs. We continue to be transparent and open. Mr. Deltel. Canadians, Madam Minister, want transparency and openness, but they need data and numbers. The question is quite simple. How much is Canada's deficit? The Honourable Minister. Once again, Madam Chair, we've been very clear with Canadians, with parliamentarians. We've set up many programs, emergency programs, in order to support families and workers. Mr. Deltel, a very clear question, Madam Chair. How much is Canada's deficit? The Honourable Minister. I will continue to say that we've invested a great deal into the wage subsidy program and CERB. Mr. Deltel. Madam Chair, it's not that I didn't try. But it seems like 3 strikes, you're out. The government has failed to provide clear information to Canadians about how much the deficit has gone up to. How much is the amount of additional expenditures due to the management of the pandemic? The Honourable Minister. Madam Chair, I'll give you a list of the investments that we've made from the beginning of this crisis. Wage subsidy. 2.5 million Canadians accessed it. When it comes to business accounts, 660,000. Mr. Deltel, Madam Chair, Minister Fortier is giving some numbers, but maybe I could get the exact number I'm looking for, which is how much has the government spent over the last 3 months? I will continue to inform my honourable colleague and say that we continue to help Canadians. There's even been a payment for families in May. Mr. Deltel. Madam Chair, how can we trust this government if it doesn't even know how much the deficit is and how much the government's been spending since the beginning of the pandemic? I will ask again. How much did the government spend from the beginning of the pandemic? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Chair. I will continue to talk about the investments that we have made, including among youth and seniors. And now we're going to invest in people living with a disability. Mr. Deltel. It's extraordinary, Madam Chair. The government can't do what the Parliamentary Budget Officer does. The PBO can define how much the deficit and the expenditures are. Why can't the government? The Honourable Minister. From the beginning of this crisis, we have been able to invest in Canadians with programs that have helped them pay their bills, help them support their families, and we will continue to do so. With no idea of the result or control over expenditures. My next question, when are we going to have the economic update? The Honourable Minister. Once again, we've been very clear that during this extraordinary time, we will continue to be open and transparent as soon as it is possible to provide an update. Mr. Deltel. Madam Chair, I can only congratulate Minister Fortier. With all of this emphasis on clarity, why is it that Quebec and Newfoundland can provide an update and yet the federal government cannot? The Honourable Minister, I will continue to repeat, Madam Chair, that we have been very clear and transparent about the investments that we've made for Canadians. When it's possible to have clear projections, Mr. Deltel. Madam Chair, the track record of today is we have no idea of the deficit, no idea of the expenditures, and no idea of when the economic update is going to be provided. Does the government know where Canada's heading right now? The Honourable Minister. Once again, I am proud to say, Madam Chair, that we have supported Canadians during this crisis, and we will continue to do so. Our priority is their health and to help them pay their bills at the end of the month. Mr. Seaback.
Mr. Seaback.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Measuring the COVID response and the performance of your country versus other countries in the world is an important indicator of your success in that fight. Could the minister advise what the infection rate per million is in Italy right now?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Actually, I think a better measurement of how the country is doing in terms of our response to COVID-19 is the numbers of infections and deaths in our own country and the comparative capacity of Canada to respond to the infection. And I am proud to say that we have...
Madam Chair, that's a much longer answer than the question I asked.
I'm sorry, but we had some technical issues. That's why the minister was having the answer. Mr. Seaback.
The actual infection rate right now in Italy per million is 6.9. Does the minister know what the infection rate per million is in France right now?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm not sure what the line of questioning is of the member opposite, but I can speak to Canada's experience with COVID-19 and our current work to protect Canadians' health and safety. I'm happy to answer questions about our domestic response.
Back.
Madam Chair, the rate of infections per million in France is 4.6 right now. Does the minister know what the infection rate per million is in Australia right now?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. All of that information, as the member opposite knows, is available on a number of different tracking sites. I think the member opposite is obviously trying to make a point, and I'm happy to answer the question.
Seaback.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, the number is actually 0.49 per million. And I'm going to ask the same question with respect to New Zealand. I assume the minister does not know that number either.
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate the opportunity to once again talk about the tremendous work that the provinces and territories have been doing to protect the health and safety of Canadians.
Madam Chair, the actual infection rate per million in New Zealand right now is 0.03. Now for an easy one. Does the minister know what the current infection rate per million is right now in Canada?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Again, I'm happy to talk about Canada's response to COVID-19 and how we're supporting provinces and territories to protect the health and safety of Canadians.
Seaback.
The infection rate per million in Canada right now is 16. That is 4 times higher than many of our G7 counterparts. It's 40 times higher than Australia and 500 times higher than New Zealand. This is after borrowing close to $200 billion, shutting down our economy, and the enormous effects this has had on Canadians. How can this government explain this abysmal performance in comparison to other countries around the world?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. It's a real shame that the member opposite is so harsh in his criticism of the work of the provinces and territories to protect the health and safety of Canadians. We know this is a shared responsibility. It has been a global pandemic, Madam Speaker, and of course, the answer is a complex one for which I don't have time to provide given the shortness of his question.
Seaback.
Madam Chair, our infection rate is 500 times higher than New Zealand. They are virtually COVID-free, suggesting that I shouldn't be asking these types of questions when our performance is so poor compared to other countries, 40 times that of Australia, I don't think is appropriate. We are on the verge of reopening our economy all across this country, and our rate is so much higher than other countries. How can the minister justify the performance of this country versus Australia and New Zealand and Germany and France?
Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I see the member opposite is cherry-picking countries that have had lower infection rates than Canada, while leaving out others that have had tremendous infection rates. We know there are a number of complex factors that go into how a country fares with coronavirus. I will say this, Madam Speaker, I'm incredibly proud of the work of my colleagues at all levels of government who have worked so tirelessly over the last several months to protect the health and the safety of Canadians. We know there's more to do. We know there's always ways.
The Honourable Wilson-Raybould.
Thank you, Chair. While it seems there to be general consensus that systemic racism exists in Canada, there's been much recent debate about what it means. Can the government please tell this committee how it defines systemic and provide specific examples of policy and legislative initiatives that are underway or being considered?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member for the question. Systemic racism, systemic discrimination exists within our institutions, and that's why it's important that the decision-making table actually reflect the diversity of our country. That's why we brought forward a new appointments process. That's exactly why we have an opportunity right now to ensure that the programs and policies we put in place are informed by lived experiences. These are the measures we're going to put forward. We have an anti-racism secretariat as well as an anti-racism strategy that was created by Canadians for Canadians, and we look forward to working together with allies in all parties. Thank you.
Ms. Wilson-Raybould.
Well, I didn't hear a specific definition of systemic racism there, but I'll move to my next question. With respect to Indigenous peoples, would the government agree that the Indian Act is one of, if not the most egregious examples of systemic racism in Canada, and in particular sections 5 through 17, where the Crown is still legislating and determining who is legally an Indian, and sections 74 through 80, where the Crown is still legislating how those people so defined govern themselves? Would the government not agree that these are both examples of systemic racism?
Honourable Minister.
I also thank the member for the question, and I do believe that our government is working very hard to get people out of that colonial piece of legislation, the Indian Act. The more we work together on that path of self-determination and of rights recognition, where nations will determine who are their members, and that indeed is one way out of the systemic racism that has faced Indigenous people coast to coast to coast.
Raybould?
Thank you. I'm not sure if I heard agreement with my question, but surely it is the height of racism where one group of peoples tells another who they are and how they make decisions about themselves. Does the minister agree that the determination of who is an Indigenous person and how they govern themselves and make internal decisions should be an exclusive power of a recognized Indigenous peoples?
The Honourable Minister.
I think that the member and I totally agree on this, that again, as we move to self-determination where nations will determine who are their members, we have really no right as a country to be telling nations who and who are not their members. That is why in the future we hope that the Indian Registrar position would no longer be necessary, as all nations in Canada are able to determine who and who is not a member of their nation.
Ms. Wilson-Raybould.
Thank you. So just to clarify and to be certain, does the minister agree that these powers of governance should be the exclusive powers for recognized Indigenous peoples?
Minister.
I think that is everything we're working towards as we build and nation rebuilding in the rights recognition, as nations come together to determine who is the nation and who are their members. That is the work that we're supporting coast to coast to coast.
Thank you.
My job is to accelerate that progress.
Wilson-Raybould.
Thank you, Chair. This government has stated numerous times that they are committed to advancing sentencing reform that will, quote, stand the test of time. They also state, quote, they are committed to addressing the tragic problem of overrepresentation of Indigenous peoples and marginalized Canadians while holding offenders to account and protecting victims. I think that most members in this House would agree that the time for empty promises is over and action is required. Evidence clearly shows that mandatory minimum penalties are a big part of the problem and not smart justice policy. There has been enough study and there has been too much delay due to political expediency. When will the government confirm that it will repeal mandatory minimum penalties for all but most of the serious of offences?
Well, Minister.
Madam Speaker, I thank the honourable member for the question. We, as always, are very concerned with the tragedy, if you will, Madam Speaker, of overrepresentation of Indigenous peoples in our criminal justice system and in incarceration. We have described it as a national shame, Madam Speaker. So we understand that. We are working on a number of different fronts in order to reduce that. And it includes continually looking at the criminal code and seeing where reform is possible, and that includes sentencing reform.
Monsieur Boulris.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In Quebec, 55,000 people are waiting for social housing in Quebec. Groups are demanding social housing. Montreal wants to build social housing like Quebec, like Ottawa. But When Ottawa asks Quebec to build social housing, Quebec answers that it can't be asked to do what it already wants to do. There are families who are suffering right now. Can we please get out of this madhouse and free up the funds? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are committed to reaching a bilateral housing agreement with the Government of Quebec based on the principles of partnership and collaboration. We want to ensure that we reach an agreement that works for Quebec and Quebecers, and we're committed to reaching that agreement very soon.
Monsieur Boulris.
Comme on dit chez nous,
as we say back home, that's just great. When it comes to the performing arts and dozens of festivals, 2020 is a total loss. Will the Minister of Heritage help our cultural sector, and if so, when? Thank you, Chair, and I would like to thank my colleague for his interest in arts and culture. We've acted quickly from the beginning of the pandemic, Madam Chair. Almost $2.5 billion is going to be provided to arts and culture through the emergency response benefit, wage subsidy, $500 million in emergency measures for arts and culture all throughout Canada. We've already started helping this sector, and we're going to help this sector get through this unprecedented crisis.
Mr. Boulris? Oui, parfait.
Mr. Boulris. Yes, great. The minister is great at outlining what they've done in the past, but not so much on what's to come. For workers in tourism or culture, for artists, for artisans, things are going to end on July 4th because that's when the CERB benefit will run out. People working in culture are quite worried. What are all these people supposed to do on July 5th? The minister.
L'honorable ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
My apologies, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Canadians across the country are wondering what comes next from our government, and I can assure them that although yesterday we had a massive setback when we tried to introduce flexibilities into the wage subsidy and into the CERB, and that didn't work, we're looking to see how we can continue to support workers, how we can continue to ensure that jobs that are available are filled, and how we can make sure that we don't disincentivize work as we move into the next phase. Thank you.
Madam Chair, for people working in restaurants, bars, tourism, culture, will CERB be extended, yes or no?
Ministre.
As has been said a number of times, Madam Speaker, we will continue to be there for workers and their families.
Monsieur Boulris.
Le secteur aéronautique.
The aeronautics sector represents about 70,000 good jobs in Quebec in 245 businesses. With planes grounded, the future is uncertain. Other countries in the world are supporting these workers, but here we don't even have a dedicated fund for this sector. When will there be a national strategy for aeronautics and to protect those jobs? The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My colleague's question is relevant because we know that the aerospace sector has been impacted, and it's important for Montreal, where his riding is located and where mine is located. That's why we're acting for our SMEs. We will always be ready to help our aeronautics sector or our aerospace sector. Mr. Boulris, next week, Canada is trying to get elected to a Security Council seat. Two scientists are criticizing Canada because we're continuing to subsidize our oil and gas sector. Is it possible we won't get a seat on the Security Council because we are not doing our share in fighting climate change? The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We know that Canada must show leadership in the face of the major global challenges that we face, and more than ever, Canada is playing a positive role by being a champion of diversity and inclusion, addressing climate change, and leading peace and security efforts and helping the most vulnerable. A seat on the Security Council will allow Canada to be a strong voice for a fairer, more inclusive, and more prosperous world. This is the message that Canada wants to bring to the table. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madame Vignola.
Ms. Vignola. Thank you, Madam Chair. Tuesday, we learned that Davy was once again shut up of the project for a polar icebreaker. Davy was pre-qualified, but when will it receive a contract for a polar icebreaker?
Madame la Ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much for the question. I will say that this is an issue that is still under decision at the current time. Davy has begun the process of qualifying to be the third shipyard. That is also a process that is occurring at the current time. And in due course, there will be a decision made about the polar icebreaker, but it is not at the current time. Thank you.
Vignola.
Ms. Vignola. I understand that there are discussions underway, but at least Davy represents Canada's 50% of Canada's shipyard activity, and this strategy represents $100 billion in contracts, and Davy only received roughly 3% of this money. When will Davy finally have a contract in hand? Chair, I'd like to underscore the extraordinary work of all the employees of this department, and we will always work with the Davy Shipyard, and it'll be a pleasure to work with them because they do absolutely exceptional work. Ms. Vignola. I'd like to thank you for recognizing the work of Davy and its employees, which is exceptional, of course. However, recognition also needs action, and this means giving a construction contract to Davy for an icebreaker. The Honourable Minister. Chair. Thank you, Anita. Once again, I'd like to highlight the excellent quality of the work that all Davy's employees do, and the Government of Canada regularly works with them. We recognize the importance of Davy's strategic role within its region as well, and we'll be announcing something shortly. Ms. Vignola. This isn't the first time that companies have tried to hamper Davy from winning a construction contract. They've said that it lost a contract because it couldn't provide a ship in 2019, but it is able to provide an icebreaker for 2027 if it receives the contract now. When will Davy and its employees finally have the pleasure of building this icebreaker? Thank you, Chair. I'd like to tell my colleague that I held a teleconference with Davy's suppliers, people in Sherbrooke and Quebec City, people across the province, and I'd like to repeat what a strategic role Davy plays in Quebec, but also across its entire network of suppliers. Ms. Vignola. Yes, this network of suppliers is not just in Quebec, but across Canada. It's a partner, and we want to ensure their recovery. And it can start with this contract for an icebreaker. When will Davy receive this contract? The Honourable Minister. As I said, the decision will be announced in the future, but I'd like to say that our government announced support for the Davy Shipyard, and it is pre-qualified in order to become the third strategic partner as part of the strategy, and this is in a very important position, Chair, and we want to make a decision in the future. Thank you. Ms. Vignola, 15 seconds. In the future, Is that a near future or a further future? The Honourable Minister. Chair. By definition, the future is tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, or sometime in the future. But I'm sure once again that Davy will occupy an exceptional role and will be there to support it.
Madam Chair, my Central Alberta riding has been hit with a triple whammy of this government's anti-business policies, its anti-energy policies, and now COVID-related shutdowns. How will this government ensure that traditional businesses in my riding will be able to compete on the world stage as our economy reopens?
The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister.
I heard that. Hello, Madam Speaker. I want to thank the Honourable Member for that question. Right from the very beginning, we are here to help our small businesses. But as the Minister for International Trade, it gives me great pleasure to continue to work with our Canadian small businesses like those in Alberta so that we can help them grow and grow into the expert global marketplaces. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
Mr. Calkins.
Madam Chair, recently the Red Deer and District Chamber of Commerce surveyed its membership. They've seen relatively low uptake on federal programs amongst its membership because they simply don't meet the qualification criteria. 73% of the business owners expect the economic recovery to be slow, and less than 10% plan to fully rehire laid off staff. They don't feel like this government has their back. What message does the minister have for these businesses that face incredible hardship because they were pushed out in the cold several years ago and now seem completely forgotten?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Obviously, we know that Alberta has been hard hit, and we know that many of the business owners are going through difficult times right now. That's exactly why, in order to make sure that they would not be falling through the cracks, we've doubled the budget of Western Economic Diversification, which is the regional development agency for Alberta, the Prairies, and BC. And so we will be there for them. If my colleague has clear examples, please contact me, contact my office. Let's work together to find solutions.
Madam Chair, Parks Canada is now enveloping long-term lease conditions in its annual business licensing process. Can the minister explain to these businesses why?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Certainly, Parks Canada has ongoing planning processes with respect to a whole range of different issues within the national parks. I think we were very pleased to announce last week that we would be ensuring that rent relief was provided to businesses that operate within the parks, and we certainly are interested in seeing those businesses and those communities that are adjacent to the parks succeed as we go forward.
Mr. Calkins.
Madam Speaker, or Madam Chair, to the Public Safety Minister, since his announcement on May 1st, where does the RCMP keep its list of newly prohibited firearms?
The Honourable Minister.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the question. The answer that is that the RCMP maintains, through the Canadian Firearms Program, the public firearms reference table, and it's being updated as quickly as possible, and I would refer the member to check with that table.
Mr. Calkins.
Madam Chair, to the Minister, is that firearms reference table actually available to the public?
To the Honourable Minister.
And thank you, Madam Speaker. And I would suggest that the member, and either himself or advise the people he represents, to contact the Canadian Firearms Program and the RCMP to obtain that information.
Mr. Calkins.
So the answer is there is no direct public access to the firearms reference table. So if they have to access it through the RCMP, is there a way that the general members of the public don't have to go through a second party or a third party in order to access the firearms reference table? Minister has put out a letter to all firearms owners across this country, has told them that they need to check their firearms for legality, and yet gives them no direct mechanism to do so. Why?
Honourable Minister.
Yeah, there's very little time to correct all the mistakes in what the member just said, but let me repeat that if the minister or if the member opposite wishes to check with the Canadian Firearms Program and the RCMP on what is on the public firearms reference table, he should contact them. And secondly, the letter to which he was referred was not sent out by me, but in fact was sent out by the Canadian Firearms Program, and I hope that those facts help the member have a better understanding of how this actually is done.
Very short question.
How many shotguns has the minister banned since May 1st?
The Honourable Minister, very short answer.
Yeah, and the answer is none, and because none of those were included on the order in council. However, we did ban the frames, firearms frames and receivers of AR-10s and AR-15s, and the RCMP is now updating the firearms reference table to include the prohibition of those weapons containing those prohibited items.
Order, yes.
Madam Chair, I would just like to remind you that the length of the question, the answer is supposed to be at the same length. That last one was more than 3 times as long.
If you want to get an answer, I had to give the minister the time to detail what he was answering. That's a question of providing the answer. And there was no time left anyway. There was 15 seconds. Sur ce, nous...
With that, this concludes our session for today. The committee is now adjourned until Monday at noon.